Howdy, folks. I'm Jeff Gonzalez, former Navy SEAL, president of Trident Concepts, and host of the Bulletproof Workshop, powered by AR15.com, where we discuss knowledge, skills, and ability to help bulletproof your everyday performance in whatever your field. Welcome to podcast 012. My next guest founded one of the most visited forums, and not just within the firearms industry. AR15.com has been a powerhouse within the firearms industry, providing a mountain of information for its users, not without controversy or attack from the anti-gun community. Yet, they still work tirelessly to ensure access to information remains and maintained so that people and with the love of firearms can have access to express their opinions no matter their side. He's a father, rebel, programmer, Second Amendment champion, and longtime friend. Please welcome to the show, Juan Avila.
It's nice to be here.
Thank you, Juan, for coming down. I appreciate you. I do. I appreciate your time. And speaking of time, let's take just a short moment to thank our sponsors. Folks, this show is sponsored by 1776 Insurance. We're talking about comprehensive firearms collection coverage. That also includes your accessories as well as knives. If you've got questions or you want to learn more, please visit 1776insurance.com. All right, so we're back. I start all the podcasts off by trying to get a better understanding of, who you are as a person, and more importantly, like how your childhood shaped you into the man you are today, the successful man that you are today.
So go that far, but
well, I am. So let's talk a little bit about where you're from and how your childhood sort of shaped your direction in life that you're currently at.
Okay. Well, I won't go into too much detail. I was a problem child, so there was a lot of childhood stories they're probably really fun to share, but we'll do that another time.
Fair enough.
Well, you can't really start my story without talking about my dad. A hero of mine. I love my dad, and a big part of the website as well for those who have any history with ARFCOM. So, families from Cuba. The way history tells it, there's a lot of stories about the people that just get missed, and my dad was one of those where I had to flee Cuba in the middle of the night. He gets to the U.S. and in order for him to, I'm going to kind of speed this along, but in order for him to get citizenship, he joined the military. Had to get a waiver signed because he was underage. Went, fought Vietnam, came back. Married my mom and had three boys, all trouble. And I owe a lot to him because without the sacrifices that he made early on, he came back from the military, put himself through college, put himself through medical school.
Wow.
And kind of gave us a life. Now, when we were young, when we were starting out, we didn't have anything.
Sure.
So, there was times we first moved to New York 30, 40 years ago. It was, you're 1 second away from the street. And if it wasn't for like this residency housing thing that came up for the hospital, we would have been on the street. So we're, that borderline where you have nothing, that you're on food stamps. It's where we came from. But his sacrifices paved the way for all of us. And as the middle child of three, I was the most problematic. Like I said, I can share a lot of stories.
For sure.
But I never made it easy for him. But he did work hard and kind of instill in us, that you want to make it in this country. You bust your butt, you respect it, you love this. And I think that's really common to a lot of Cuban Americans and other people come to this country as you're coming here for an opportunity.
Yeah.
And so he really beat that into us. Sometimes physically. And we also were introduced to firearms at a young age. Okay. It became, something that he shared with us, and we had a lot of fun doing. Eventually my brother served. I not due to medical issues, but I went through, the normal stuff that boys go through, which is understanding your place in the universe and also how much trouble you can create before either the cops or the fire department bring you home, and then you're walking funny for a month because you can't feel your legs. So definitely learned a lot as a kid from a lot of different lessons that I learned. We went through everything from I've been kicked out of. I think my first school I got kicked out of was like first grade or something, and that's because I didn't speak the language, was the outsider. the kids taught me the swear words first. And,
Oh, no way.
And so I'd go around school swearing because I didn't know what I was saying.
But it sounded like English, so you didn't care.
But hey, it made other kids laugh. So troublemaker from day one. So
can I ask you something about your dad?
Sure.
So the influence he had on firearms, introducing firearms at a young age, was that because of his experience in Cuba and the importance behind the Second Amendment?
I think, yeah, a combination of that and the service time that he put in. He understood that in this country you have to be able to protect your freedoms.
Yeah.
And that was the big difference between coming from a country that switches to communism and takes over, and there's no guns anymore because that's the first thing they take from you, right? And then they take away your freedom of speech, and then they take away the guns.
Yeah.
And then they can do whatever they want.
Absolutely.
So I think that he wanted us to understand it, also respect, firearms. For us, it was very, very anal when we dealt with guns. You always check. You always assume it's loaded. You always, so we learned all the safety things ahead of time, and then, we always enjoyed shooting. But it was a two-pronged attack. It was one thing that we could do and share together that was fun
As a family.
Yeah, and
That's
the
great.
other one was understanding this is your right, but it's also your responsibility to defend.
Right
This is our
on.
country now, right?
Yeah.
We're 100% Americans, and
love
we are
hearing
going
that.
to do whatever it takes to defend this country. And it's.
Oh, I love hearing
So-
that. About what age was that when you were introduced to firearms?
I don't know. Like I said, we started off pretty poor, so we couldn't afford anything. But I'd say, before high school, so middle school time.
Perfect. Yeah,
we
so
started
early
shooting.
teens. Early teens.
Yeah. Early
That's a
teens.
good time. That's a good
So-
time to start to explore firearms as a
And
child.
I introduced our daughter when she was I want to say when she was 2, she got her first rifle. So, that was my older brother's thing was he wanted to get her first rifle. So I let him do it, and he got that. So
That is awesome.
yeah. So we started our kids all early on as well, but a lot younger than what we were.
So you grew up, what part of New York?
Western New York.
Western New York.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a beautiful part of the state.
Gets cold, but
a little
yeah.
bit. Yeah. So, and he went up there for work.
Yeah, so he had finished his medical school and got a residency in a hospital in Rochester, New York. So we were in Rochester, and he was going through finishing up his residency to become a doctor.
Yeah,
because
yeah.
that's a long process.
It is
I
a
mean,
very long process. And
So-
so after his residency, he elected to stay at that hospital and stay in that region.
We actually moved a little bit as when we were young. We ended up in Rhode Island for a couple
Island.
years,
Okay.
and then came back to New York, back to the Rochester area. And yeah, he moved around to a couple different hospitals there. But yeah,
Interesting. Okay. All right. So growing up in Western Rochester, other than the cold, what sort of activities did you partake in? Let's just say that are legal to talk about.
well, like I said, as kids, we caused a lot of trouble. So everything from, when we were young, climbing trees, falling out of 30, 50-foot trees and hitting branches along the way, and barely not hitting the ground. Riding bikes everywhere. Back in those days, it was like first thing in the morning, you grab all your crap, you head out, you get on a bike, and you take off, and your parents never saw you until like dinner time, if you were going for dinner, or you'd say, "Oh, I'm staying at somebody's
house and eating
so
dinner
that
there.
you could, that was just an convenient excuse to stay out.
Of course.
We played on the train tracks a lot. That's an old funny story. Like everybody else says, "Oh, we played on train tracks," but we did. We loved collecting the railroad spikes and causing trouble out in the woods.
Yeah.
Really most of it, but normal, I think, childhood for what we were at that time, right? And as we got older, we created more chaos. So from lighting things on fire to making home explosives to BB gun fights in the woods. And
Oh my God.
all the normal things. I think
Oh yeah.
our generation, our as kids, we did. Yeah, we were.
Oh my God.
We were just chaos.
Oh, it's so good to hear that too, because, I grew up in a time period very similar. Like in the summertime, my mom would literally kick me out.
Yeah.
So I just was not just shown the door, I was pushed out the door.
It's mom's quiet
and
time,
I hear,
right?
I hear the deadbolt click. And so water's out of the hose. If we were lucky, we might find a treat left on the porch at some point during the day, some watermelon or maybe some sandwiches or something like that.
That's not too bad.
No, we were living high if we had watermelon. And we would just play all day long and do the same thing, play in the woods, mischief. Luckily, nobody got seriously hurt. A lot of bumps and bruises, scrapes and scars and things like that, but nothing too serious. So, it's nice because I feel like a lot of that helps shape not just the person that you will become, but your future decisions that you make as a result of the influence that you were exposed to at a young age. And it's really interesting to track that and see kind of like how today connects to yesterday.
Right, your past.
Yeah, exactly. All right, so we're growing up in Rochester. We're getting in all sorts of trouble.
A little bit of trouble.
A little bit of trouble. Okay, a little bit of trouble.
I told you some of the
wink,
fun stories.
wink.
We didn't avoid a lot. Like you had a lot of scrapes and bruises. We had nails through people's feet, broken arms. So we caused a little bit more. We dialed it up to 11.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
When the fire department brings you home because you started a fire. It's
wow.
Not a good day. Not a good day to be mom and dad. Or you come home and you're just blood covering everything and just gushing from your face.
So there was one time that I came home and I snuck into my room without my mom seeing me. And I went right to bed, kind of like put my back to the door. So I was in bed. She came in and first of all, mistake number one was pretending like I was going to bed. It's like 8:30, 9 o'clock at night. There's no way. Cause I would just be up all night. And when she turned on the light, I still didn't turn over. And so she kind of starts to creep closer to me. And when she finally rolls me over, my face was all scraped up and scarred up. And I had bruises all along my shoulders. And I was like...
It was a good day.
Yeah, it was a good day. So I had another side to match that after her. So it was like...
But that's part of, again, growing up in that time, you went out and you
explored.
You figured it out. You found out who you were. You got friends that kind of got you into trouble. You got them into trouble. It was normal.
I think so.
To think now, to let your kids out and be like, okay, we'll see you at night. Well, your kids might never come home.
Yeah, it's true.
It's just really weird to have grown up in a time when everybody was out. And you could create a little bit of chaos and you learned a lesson, right?
Absolutely.
Now the kid might not come home, right?
Well, so
you never know.
One of the things that I like and I value about that is the mistakes, the failures, the things that we did wrong. It's set for me an early precedent about don't get out there and do things, and maybe you are going to make mistakes. I remember trying to make this one jump on my bike. I just couldn't, either I was afraid to really pedal hard to clear it or whatever. And, eventually I was just like, all right, fuck it. We're going all in. Yep. And it was that moment where I went all in and sailed all the way over the jump and landed on the other side. And I was like, but it was taking those types of risks and learning and pushing our boundaries and making mistakes and helping learn a little bit about ourselves as people. So now that we are in our teen years, what does teen Juan do in that time period?
Well, we're not going to cover a lot of those stories, but life lessons.
What I'm going to remind you of? Ask me anything, Jeff. I will give you an answer.
Well, you didn't ask me specifics.
Oh,
again,
okay.
All right, again, I'll give you a summary again.
Okay.
A quick
Fair enough.
Again, middle child.
Yep.
High school years now, you're getting more freedom. We went to a school that was an open campus, so you could leave to go get lunch. You could go do stores and stuff. And it kind of grew. By the time you were junior, senior, you pretty much, do whatever you want.
Yeah, of course.
I do regret a lot of the pain that I caused my teachers. Sorry, everyone, and if anyone's even watching, and the adults at the time, friends, parents, all that kind of stuff. I was still a troublemaker, child. I did like to push the limits. I was a class clown.
Sure.
Just the normal kind of obnoxious pain in the ass that probably most people already take me for as it is. But a lot of fun. Really, a lot of great friendships. You start learning to have the guts again to do things. Yes. If you don't take a chance, you're never going to get anywhere.
Yes.
I met my beautiful wife in high school. We started dating on my senior year, and that was because, again, if you don't take that chance, how are you going to know? And to last 30 years, be together for 30 years, something had to have gone right. So if I had missed that opportunity, right? You wouldn't necessarily have that. So you learn early on, whether it's true. I did a lot of sports. I was, I loved just any kind of violence. So lacrosse, football, whatever I could play, whether it was on a team or just, in the playground, we did. And again, I loved my friends from back then. We had a lot of good times, but we caused a lot of trouble. We injured each other quite a bit. And you learn you put in, again, another thing is you go all out. It doesn't matter if you're hanging with your friends. More importantly, when you're hanging with your friends, you need to.
For sure.
You need to show up. If your arm gets broken and it's dangling to the side, you do not show weakness.
Yeah,
or else it's
for sure.
over.
Yeah.
So, again, lessons you learn early on.
It's so true. I had a pack of friends that we hung out pretty much. Some of us were as early as kindergarten, I think. And we just stayed friends all the way through high school. We all went our separate ways eventually, but I still stay in touch with them. But I can remember, going the high school years, doing things together, getting into trouble, pushing each other to be a little bit better or whatever the case might be. There was always somebody that did one thing well and everybody wanted to do it better than them. So we were always trying to do it, whether it was riding bikes or skateboarding or, we played water polo and swam in high school. So whatever it was, we were always trying to
push each other.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It wasn't necessarily one-upmanship. It was just
sometimes it is.
It is. I guess I could see it as a format, but really what we wanted to do was I wanted, when I had a good friend of mine who was just super fast in a sprint, and I'm like, I need to be faster than him. I want to be faster than him.
Yep.
And that's what I trained for. I trained to try to be faster than him, and that was a driving,
But you also learn though that some of those friends are better, or that's
Absolutely.
what their natural thing.
Absolutely.
In a pool, I loved it, but I didn't swim because it wasn't, there was no violence to me. Water polo I did play, and I enjoyed it because there was a little violence.
Yeah.
But a really good friend in high school was a great, actually a few of them were great wrestlers, and I always used my role as let's push them to be better.
Yes.
Because they're state champions, and that's what they ended up being.
Nice.
And I knew that I wasn't, it wasn't my thing.
Yeah, for sure.
For me, I wanted to play football, and I got another family story.
Uh-oh.
My parents wouldn't let me play football after I played when I was young, and I think in a game I broke my wrist, and I kept playing, and I didn't say anything to my parents, and they're like, you can't do this crap, and then I did it again, something else, I don't remember, broke my arm, and I kept playing. It wouldn't come out of the game because I wanted to win.
Oh my God.
And they were like, that's it, you're not doing it anymore because you can't take care of yourself. You don't know your limits, you don't know how to stop.
Yep.
You're playing against kids who are bigger than you and everything. I mean, I'm as a little 5-foot guy,
for sure,
you're small on the field.
But
I took it to another level.
Yeah,
right.
absolutely.
I was a battering ram. I had friends who were 250 pounds in high school.
Wow.
Right, that I wrestled with and everything. And they played, they went to college ball and stuff. And they wouldn't play sandlot type football because me and a couple other friends that were smaller, we were psychotic. We didn't care. And they're like, the last thing I need is to blow out my knee.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Because Avila won't stop.
Yeah, because they've got real chance, and they're like, absolutely, I get that.
So it's kind of funny because I really, a lot of my friends were the bigger guys, and I think the mutual respect that you get from being someone who goes 100% all the time.
Absolutely.
That you can respect that, and you're like, I can deal with it as long as you don't injure me.
We're good.
Yourself out. We want to watch you, hit people, but not hit us.
Not hit us.
So, a lot of fun stuff.
Well, let me ask you this then. So now that you're forming, if you will, is there anything that you do today, say for yourself, like a daily habit or whatever, not maybe daily, weekly, that was a byproduct of your experience as a younger person, like in your early teens?
Not really,
No?
honestly. No, I think everything from life you take as a lesson and you apply it in a different way.
Okay.
But I don't think there's any routines or anything that I did or that I do now that I think continues. There's lessons and there's things that you've learned, and I think the key was molding who you are and how you are and how you view the world versus
For
that.
sure.
And again, that continued in college with a lot of craziness that
Okay.
happened there.
So, well, good, because that's what we're going to talk about next.
I figured
college.
we're moving into that.
Yeah. So, where did you go to college?
So I went to a state school up in New York, Geneseo State, and it was actually probably a college I don't know, borderline to get into. Let's just say did take advantage of the minority status to get in there on a program.
Nice.
Like a test program.
I like it.
And the reason for that was, as we covered in high school, I was not the best student. It doesn't mean I wasn't smart. I did really well on my SATs.
Nice.
And it was one of those things where everybody's like, how the hell do you score such a high? You get a high score in your SATs, and your grades are just absolutely trash. Yeah. And it's because I wanted to cause trouble and have fun, and I always kind of felt, I don't want to say bored. My teachers will feel bad. But it just didn't connect with me. That wasn't my thing. Like, I can work hard all day long if I'm engaged. Yes. And I think a lot of people are like that, right? Yeah. Like, if math doesn't appeal to someone, they're not going to put in the effort.
100%.
Right? And I think, especially with boys, our attention span is so narrow, right? That we'd rather check out, the girls in the class than actually focus on the problems. And I think that's kind of, it's a normal thing for
well,
us.
I think you're right. My attention span is incredible. Like, I have ebb and flow where I can be hyper focused, laser focused. I can hold that for a short duration, but I can accomplish so much in that time period. Right. And then the rest of the time, I'm a soup sandwich. I'm all over the place. I'll have like 4 or 5 projects started, and none of them are finished, and I can't even remember where I am at on any of them or one of them. So it's funny because I feel you're right that's common, more common than we like to admit. Yes. And it's also probably pretty normal.
Well, I think you also go through phases too. I'd like to say that probably in our, go back 5, maybe 10 years for us.
Yeah.
And we're close to the same age. I think that focus was actually a lot easier to tune in. And as we've gotten a little bit older now, it's back to the, like you're younger where you kind of lose track or you leave stuff half started.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's like a dad type thing or just older, but I've noticed that there's a lot of things that I'll start.
Yep.
Right. And you're just like, oh man, I was like 80% done or 90% done. And I just didn't. And I'm like, I'll go back to it eventually. Yeah, and I start making lists and then you lose the list or whatever.
So let me ask you this, because I have that problem. I have that problem in spades. Okay. I start a lot of projects and I leave a lot of projects undone. Do you have like any strategies to trying to go back and finish them, or is it just kind of like willy-nilly?
No, I'm still pretty anal about tracking things, and I'll make a list, and I will eventually get to them and knock them off and finish it. Because, again, you get older now, you have a house, and you've got house responsibilities, right? And those are really the projects that we may start and we might not finish. But
absolutely,
no, I really try to keep myself organized in that, and my wife picks on me because the house can be immaculate. Like I'm an organizer. Like if the pantry, if things aren't in the right place, I've got to take an hour or whatever it takes, and I got to rip that thing apart and put it back together.
Don't even get me started. That's right.
So there's things that pull and it has to get done.
Yeah.
But then like my office is the complete chaos, but it's organized chaos.
It's right. You understand it.
Yeah, there's stuff everywhere, but I know exactly where everything is.
I remember those
I catch
times.
a lot of crap for that.
Well, it's so funny. I got to share this story. Like I am the exact same way. Like things have to be. So what I find to be helpful for me is structure. If I have some form of structure, or in your case, organization, it helps me to stay focused, to try to at least complete the task. And I do a lot of chunking. Yep. Like I'll chunk things down in bite-sized pieces that I feel like, okay, I just accomplished this task, right? And it's only a subtask of the overall task, but I've completed it, and I just kind of then chunk away at all the other bigger tasks or all the other tasks until I finish the big task. But the funny story is like she does this on purpose. Jamie, if you're listening, I love you, but damn it, she'll take something in the pantry specifically and move it. And she'll do that, and she'll see how long it takes for me to spot it.
Right? They do it on purpose.
I know. Right? I know. Yep. And I'm like, she's like, wow, that was fast. That was only like half a day.
Yeah, as soon as you saw it.
Yeah, almost exactly. It's just so that's kind of funny that you have a similar kind of experience.
Yeah, I think my wife sometimes puts stuff away in the wrong place, knowing that I'll come behind.
Oh, hell to the yeah.
And clean it up.
Oh, yeah. Oh, absolutely. Trust me, I get that all the time. I'm laughing right now because it's so true. And I know she does it, and it just, I'll put it away without even thinking about it. Like, it goes over here. Yep. And she just is kind of over there giggling.
Right. the games we play as
I know.
adults, right? It's nowhere near what we were when we were kids, when we were causing trouble. But
oh, it's hilarious.
Now
it's so funny.
Yeah.
All right, so what did you major in college?
So this is a fun story.
Yay.
So I was I was a troublemaker kid. So my parents were, and my dad can verify this for everybody on the site. He was like, "You're not gonna make it to 21. If you live to 25, it'll be a miracle for us because you are a constant disaster."
Oh, wow.
I was the troublemaker kid, man. I at every level. Whether I came home with a busted arm, half on fire, whatever it was.
Half on fire.
Well, like your burned clothes and stuff. There was always something. So, and then I was a bad student. So my parents, and I like to do the athletic stuff. So I was always constantly playing football, right? I'd go play basketball. I'd come home with, broken fingers pointed sideways and stuff. And I'd, snap them back. And it was just always something.
Okay.
So my dad was always like, if you get into college, if you do that, it'll be a miracle. So I get into college. And like I said, it was my SAT scores were fantastic. My grades were a little bit low, so they put me on this. You get 1 semester to try. If you do well, we'll keep you around.
Nice.
And college experience starts, and it's completely insane. So we lived in a suite. So in college, it's basically like 4 rooms, I think, maybe 4 rooms or 5 rooms. Maybe I think it was 4 rooms, and each one of them had like your roommates, right? So you had normal rooms, but instead of like being in a hallway with rooms, opposite, there was like a suite. You had 4 rooms that shared, then it was like a common bathroom and everything. And we had 2 suites of freshmen and 2 suites of like upperclassmen in this area that we were. And one of the guys, speeding up a little bit, freshman year, second half freshman year, after the first semester, and I started off as a pre-law. I wanted to be a lawyer.
Okay.
Again, I love to argue.
That's such a surprise.
Yeah, you don't know that about me at all.
Yeah,
Nobody
wow,
knows
that's
that,
really weird. I wouldn't have thought that of you.
So that's kind of how I went in, and my dad thought perfect, something in a career, like something good. So he was pretty happy with me then. But 2 things I learned in college, and the one thing, so freshman year I had the unfortunate incident of a roommate who kills himself. So the freshmen in the group, we all treated each other like roommates, and he was actually in a different room with another friend of ours, but he ends up taking his life, and he disappears for we at first he was just disappeared, and they didn't find his body before that, but it was all over the news. This, I don't know if it made national news or not, but it was state news and everything, and it was a horrible thing for a young kid to
Mm-hmm.
It's not just being exposed to death, because I think that's everywhere with your parents, your grandparents, something you usually know something, even if it's a friend that has that. But when it's in your face like that,
dude,
and you're going on search parties because it was missing,
my God.
And then you've got things like your school, responsibilities and stuff, and you can't focus.
No.
Right? So that was a crazy experience I had second half freshman year.
Oh man.
And that changed me a lot because you don't realize.
It's the first time of kind of like recognizing death.
Yeah, it's really close up front,
Yeah.
and you don't know how to handle it.
No,
as a kid,
absolutely
do
not.
you feel responsible? A lot of times I felt responsible. I felt, there's a lot of weird things that go through your head and kind of change you. So after that, I kind of fell back on my old days of. I pretty much became like an alcoholic, right, as a college student. But you fall on your old days of causing trouble and not worrying about it anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And you're just like, why do I really care about going to class? I could be dead tomorrow. I'm going to go party with some friends. I'll do just enough to get by.
Yeah.
So I turned into an a-hole student. First semester freshman year, I was like almost a 4.0.
Wow.
Right. So I finally was being challenged in classes. I really loved it. Did really well. And second semester was obviously non-existent because we had, the strategy hit. But after that, it was kind of like on probation, off probation, on probation, off probation, because I just didn't assimilate. But then I want to say towards that end of the second year, I found that you could actually do computer stuff for a living. And that blew my mind. So I said, well, I'm going to take a class and see what it's like. Because that was when Macs started coming out when we were just before college. So you had Apple IICs, 2 Pluses. I don't know if anyone remembers those days.
Wow.
You had those old IBMs. You had what's the oh my God, what's the computer that everybody had? like a Tandy.
Oh, I remember those.
Right?
Yes.
At Radio Shack, that was their computer.
Yes.
So it was just starting up. It wasn't anything big, and there wasn't like careers like it is now. Like now you can specialize in anything.
Yeah.
Back then, computer science was one thing. You did computer science.
Yeah.
Right, and they taught you everything from networking, building your operating system, how to program. I mean, we started off with everything from Fortran, and we saw what punch cards were back then, and all sorts of goofy stuff that doesn't exist anymore.
Wow, it's crazy.
Or it's kind of not used as much. But so I got into that, and I loved it. And the funniest part was, so I got into it. I changed my major. I was still doing history and stuff because I loved it.
Yeah.
And kind of keeping both doors open. But then I went all in on computer science. I did really well with the classes, and I loved it. But then you get home and you tell your dad, hey, Dad,
not going to be a lawyer anymore.
I'm not going to be a lawyer anymore. And
Sorry.
I just remember my dad going, you're throwing your life away. And I didn't want to disappoint my dad, but I don't know how to explain to him, hey, this is what I love. This is what I'm going to do. I will work my ass off.
Yeah.
Everything that you taught me is going to stay with me. It's just in a different field. And I think he was disappointed just because he was like, hey, here's a dude who's going to bust his butt. He's going to have a great career because the lawyer's going to make a lot of money. He's going to have a great life. And your parents, I think, and as you as parents, you always want better for your kids, right?
100%.
That's your whole goal in life.
Absolutely.
I want to make it better for my kids. So
exactly.
He was not happy. And I remember the conversation, and I still tease him to this day where he's like, yeah, you just threw your life away.
Oh, my God.
Right. And I'm like, well, at least I'm enjoying it.
At least I'll enjoy it on the way out.
You never know, right? Dad, you never know what's going to happen.
Do you think
down the road?
Yeah, it's hard to predict. There's no question about it. Do you think the tragedy of losing the roommate was the catalyst for you pursuing something outside of the law? Was that kind of like the timing was all about that, or?
No, I really don't think it changed where my mentality was. I'd always loved computers, but back then it was just kind of starting out, and there were like a couple games, right? Like so, I want to say during college we had things like Doom come out and Wolfenstein, right?
Yeah, I remember those.
And then you had I want to say Doom was the first one you could play together. Maybe it wasn't. I don't remember.
I don't remember either.
But I just remember that was just starting out. And before that, you had Rogue on the Mac or
I can't remember
Wizardry and Bard's Tale. All these stupid things I'm throwing out, I know will spark in some of you guys as some people
absolutely
listening, memories.
Oh, I can remember Doom big time.
Yeah. So I'd always loved that, but it was just a goofing off thing. But you're a kid and you're young and you're thinking, I'm going to do computer stuff. I want to get out there. I want to build games and kind of enjoy life. That's what I want to do. I want to write games. I want to be working for a big studio and go from there. And there weren't really any big studios other than ID back then.
Yeah.
So that was kind of, in my head, that's what I was thinking. No one really tells you in school, oh, dude, you're going to graduate and you're going to be writing drivers for, printers and stupid things because that's what developers do. It'll be a miracle if you can go work for a game company kind of thing. So none of my professors ever said anything to me.
They didn't give you a heads up?
They didn't say, they weren't you're going to be a school teacher, dude. You're going to come work at the college or you're going to be, doing some crap jobs.
Oh, my God.
Yeah, so...
about what time period was that? About what time period?
That was, 90s.
Okay.
So, yeah, early 90s. So.
Got it.
Yeah, it's crazy where we were then and where we are now. And again, as life went on, there was a lot of people who were like, no, this internet thing's a fad. And, we're never going to have a company. Companies don't care about this sort of stuff.
Isn't that funny to think about that now? What I tell my kids is that there was a time that the internet didn't exist. And they just have a hard time wrapping their head. Yeah, it does.
It's like trying to tell a kid we used to roll down our windows until they see that in a classic car or something. They can't even grasp the concept.
A funny story. Jamie has a daughter, and one of the first cars that she got had manual windows. Yeah. And she sat in the passenger seat, and she looked at the handle, and she's like, "What is that? What is that? What is that?" And Jamie's trying to explain. Well, that's the handle to roll the window down. Roll the window down.
I've never heard of such a thing.
What
kind of primates were you?
Exactly. What kind of prehistoric manner is this? Yeah. And so she's slowly rolling it down, and she's like, "Oh my God, look, it rolls the window down." So I thought that I got a kick out of that. Sorry, Taylor, if you're listening. Love you though, but
there was a lot of things, right, that we had. That changed. And there's no more payphones because now the first cell phone was a big block.
I saw a payphone for the first time and it was like more a tribute to history, just still there in a bar someplace. They're like, no, we're never getting rid of this. Because it's just like, it's history.
That is. And there's a lot of people who collect that stuff.
It's crazy, though, when you think about that.
But those things existed, and the kids, like our kids, don't know what they are. Like, well, a payphone. I had to describe a payphone to my daughter. She's like, what
do you remember? You remember how your parents used to always make you put 2 quarters in your wallet?
Yeah, in case you needed to call
home. In case you needed to call home.
Right? It was always. And it wasn't even a wallet. Or
no, just
I was going to say
pocket.
It was like, well, I was going to say like it was like a dime back then. Wasn't it,
probably. Yeah, something like that.
Sorry, folks, I'm that old. Yeah, it was crazy.
It was crazy.
It wasn't a quarter until we were in like high school.
Probably right. You're probably right. Yeah.
Right? Like it was a while. It was like 10 cents.
I just remember like getting a wallet that actually, like a kid's wallet of sorts, and it had like 2 slots to put the coins in. Just for that
reason. For the emergency calls, yep. I remember exactly. But you explain that to the younger generation, they don't necessarily understand it. And it's weird because for us it was part of everything.
That's all we know.
Like, rotary phones.
Oh, my God.
Like, you see them now, and kids these days laugh hysterically. Like, you had to call with that thing. Doesn't even make sense.
If one of them had to use that to call 911 right now, they would die. They would die.
They would struggle.
They would die.
No. Get your finger caught in it. So everything's different, and technology's brought, has made our lives easier. It's kind of cool though, just to see. Like, we used to make fun of parents and stuff because, like we would say, oh, you guys had Flintstone type TVs, right? And you had to take your car by pedaling underneath.
Yeah.
Right, and we had that when we were kids, but we made fun of our parents, like, oh, well, before us was stone. So it's kind of funny just to see kids now, and they'll say, like, I don't know how you did this rolling windows down and stuff like
crazy.
that.
You guys were weird.
You never see that
back
anymore.
then.
So, yeah. So the computer thing was interesting because, again, I don't think my dad understood it, didn't understand what the future would be. At this point in time, my older brother, he had done his basic, done some military, and I think he was doing he was interested in like being a marine biologist. So Edward was like going completely different direction.
Nice.
And he didn't switch into computers until later. He basically like reset his life and went and put himself through school to be computers. And I always say, now he's not here, so he can't argue with me, but I always say that's because I was doing it and he wanted to one-up me. Right. So that would be
a little
be my
sibling
guess.
rivalry.
Right. But either way, we both ended up computer guys. So now I
How did
don't
your
know
dad
if
take that?
Yeah, I don't know if my dad ever had a conversation with him like with me. I think I took that out of him first.
Oh yeah.
But he's got to be sitting there going, "What? Two kids throwing their lives away on this computer fad thing that's never going to kick in," because he didn't understand it.
For sure.
Right. And there wasn't like there was a lot of jobs out there. And you come out of school with a computer degree, and a lot of the funny things where you find like the computer people at businesses were like the secretaries that they figured, oh, well, it's just like typing. So we'll just teach the secretaries to type on a computer. No, so that was like the first experience out in the computer world. Like, you couldn't get a job as a game developer. I don't even know if it's harder or easier now. There's 8 million game companies, but
jeez,
I don't know how they're hiring, and if you get a kid out of school, if you want somebody with experience, kind of.
Yeah, totally.
I stayed away from that when that failed the first time. I never really tried to go back.
Okay.
Although we do have this one thing called construction. It's built on gaming engine, so that's as close as I've gotten.
Nice.
So, it's a little bit of I don't know, like a win for me in that it's game
check the box,
right?
I
can kind of
check that
half
box.
check that box.
Quick word from our sponsor. We've been working with the folks at 1776 for comprehensive insurance of our firearms collections, and I'm really happy with how things are going so far. And one of my concerns is with the amount of commuting that I do with my firearms collection. What happens should my vehicle be broken into or stolen with my firearms? And there's reason to have this concern because there's 800,000 vehicles stolen per year in America. So it's not, it's a little bit more common than we might think. What I mentioned earlier is that they have a comprehensive insurance plan, which is that they will cover your firearms stolen out of your vehicle, or should your vehicle be stolen, cover the firearms that were in the vehicle. So that's pretty reassuring in a sense. So I've mentioned this before, but the process to apply is pretty easy. Approval is pretty quick. They do not require you provide a itemization or serialized numbers. There's no appraisal or schedules that you have to provide. So really all you want to do is just make sure you have proof of ownership, and that's it. So if you want to learn more about the folks from 1776 and insuring your firearms collection, visit 1776insurance.com. What was the nexus for AR15.com? When did that come into play?
So 95, I think, is when Ed wanted to start this. I think that's when we first registered the domain. It was early on. It was a mail list. So he got out of the military. And he's like, you guys, we need ARs. Like, so my dad we shot 22s, we shot, basic stuff, wow, and handguns and whatnot. And then my brother gets out of the military, and he's like, we're getting into ARs, and we're gonna buy one, and we're gonna have fun, because this is as close as it's gonna get to kind of the military platform that he was used to.
Okay.
And so we were probably like early on. I mean, we joked about this last night. We went to dinner last night, and joked around about the history and what companies were around back then and how small that market was.
Oh my God, it's
people
crazy.
Didn't know what an AR was. They didn't know they were legal. So it was still, most of those companies were selling to police. They were selling to any kind of law enforcement agencies, whether it's security companies, whatever else. But civilians didn't really own an AR. And if you wanted to buy an AR, it was $1,500, $1,200.
Yeah, they were pricey.
They were pretty pricey, $2,000 and up. So the market wasn't really there. There wasn't very many players of competition, so it was a little bit pricier. And so he got out of the military and wanted to kind of talk to other people who were like-minded, and he started a mail list. And I wasn't involved in the early days. Well, I guess the first phase, because he did yank me into that too. But I was more of a computer, like full-out computer, just psycho, versus him. And so that means I pulled apart and built computers and new hardware inside and out back then, and I understood everything. I came out of school. I could work on a PC, a Mac, and these were old crap Macs on Apple Talk. And Spark workstations was my favorite thing, so doing Unix and all that sort of stuff. And so I knew all the hardware, all the networking, building networks and stuff like that, which is kind of unusual. Usually you're just a programmer.
Okay.
But so he started this mail list, and he was starting to have problems with the servers and stuff, and that's how he kind of roped me into helping on ARFCOM. And so early on, he starts this mail list, and it goes from like 5 people to 10 people to 100 people, 200 people. And I don't remember what the threshold was. Maybe 500 people were on that mail list, and I'm sure some of the listeners on here hopefully remember those days, and they were, because people on the site, there was a bunch of them that were on that mail list before it became AR15.com. But we had registered the domain name early on for the list and for mail and for everything else. So
the mailing list, how are people? Were they going to a website at that point?
No. So the way it works is you email this address. It's basically a list, and then that sends that email to everybody that's on the list.
Got it.
So it's like a distribution list.
Got it.
So I would email, AR info, and it would come back, and everybody in that group would get it, and then you could reply to that, or you could reply to the person. So, we built a website. I think back then it was like UBB was the software for it.
Yeah.
And that company doesn't exist anymore. And we put up a little server, and back then there was no home internet.
Yeah.
There was, you had dial-up. The wonderful world of 2600 baud dial-up.
Oh my God.
And fun stuff like that.
I can remember that. So, if I'm not mistaken, UBB stood for Ultimate Bulletin Board.
Yes.
Oh my God.
Yeah. See, not that many people remember it.
Oh, I do. I remember that. I was talking to Paul about that. I want to think it was originally a bulletin board before it was a forum. Yep. So that's awesome. So mailing list to UBB. Continue. I'm sorry.
Then we just he was having problems with it again. I kind of helped a little, but it wasn't really like much maintenance. At that point, it was like you set it up, it ran, and then you dealt with problems. I mean, it's kind of how it worked. But during that time, he had gotten us into ARs, and I really started getting into AKs. And my dad hated AKs, probably
rightfully
because
so. Rightfully so.
That's what was being shot at him. So he wasn't a fan. But I hung out on AK47.net, which is another throwback if anyone remembers that.
Oh, I remember it.
And here we're running AR-15, and I'm like, dude, I just like AKs more. Sorry. But the site started having problems, and that's when I started getting more involved, and we made a trade because at that point he was working with a buddy, I think from college, and they split paying for like a T1, a split T1, a shared T1,
Wow.
which back then was like the end of the world because you had so much bandwidth because everybody was on dial-up.
Yeah, I remember that.
So that was huge, and in order for me to put my servers on there, he's like, you got to work on ARFCOM.
Ha.
So older brother milking the
For sure.
the relationship there, and that's how we started ARFCOM. Was then I started helping running the UBB board and cleaning it up, and then we eventually started writing software for ourselves back in like 2000. Like,
So was this like a full-time gig, only gig, or
no
part-time?
This was all just a hobby for fun. It was a cool way to get information to share with gun enthusiasts. Again, when we start that site, and it's maybe 1,000 people, 500 people, whatever it is. It was very small. The community back then was very small. Nobody had an AR. Nobody knew what it was still.
Yeah.
And the internet started blowing up, and obviously internet changed everything because it was so easy to get information and to share information and to point people to things and say, hey, look, read up on this gun. You can own this thing, right? And it looks really cool. And that's part of the problem nowadays, right? Like an AR looks scary, right, to a layman, right? Somebody who doesn't understand it.
For sure.
And for us, it's kind of a lame version of what we really want.
For sure.
Right? So they don't understand that. They think, oh, we've got this, military weapon. Well, we don't. We want the military weapon.
Yeah, but we're stuck with this.
This is the closest thing we can get.
Exactly.
And the AR platform was great even then because it's, a building block. I always call it like the Lego of guns because you can do whatever you want with it. You can change out parts. And as time's gone on, we have like this huge collection of parts, right? Like anyone who's an AR fanatic has boxes or whatever, chests full of stuff, vaults full of parts.
Don't even get me started.
Right? It's just...
I have to,
that's what you had.
I did this purge probably about 2 or 3 years ago. No, it was probably longer than that, 4 or 5 years ago, where I had a couple of storage units. And when I moved out of my older house, I moved from a large, like 3,500 square foot down to about a 2,500 square foot. So I had to get rid of 1,000 square feet of crap. And I just put all this stuff in storage and just kind of forgot about it. And eventually I was like, I just need to get rid of the storage, and started going through this stuff. I found so much stuff that was like, I should have kept it because it would have been really, yes, I should have kept it. And I just was like, oh, this is trash. Because I'm thinking about it more from a practical point of view. Does this serve me right now?
Right.
Does it? Do I have a need for this right now? I wasn't thinking about collections or...
Well, even the cool factor of building something. I was just going through some stuff, and it's funny because I'm not going to throw names out there, but a friend of mine in the industry has probably as big a collection as anyone out there.
Man.
And was at my house, and I'm like, dude, I've still got like fun stuff. Do you want anything? And he's like, I got everything. If I don't have it, I'll make it.
Oh my God.
And I'm like, okay, but how about this? And I pulled out Vietnam era triangular handguards, authentic. And he's like, what?
No way.
And he was just drooling.
No
and so
way.
I gave him a set because I have like,
oh my God, like
half dozen sets left,
the shiny black
sets.
ones.
Yep.
Oh my God.
Yep.
That is too funny.
The really horrible plating. And
oh yeah, they're
like
terrible. I mean, they don't do a good job for shit. But
they're cool,
but that's the thing. It's
they're
like
authentic.
It is, and so like I really kind of kick myself in the butt for not having like, I guess maybe I'm not necessarily collector of those types of items.
I'm the same,
but I know people that are. And I could have shared that with them and kept that.
Okay, so I had probably 24 of those. So at some point when I cut back, I either gave them out, probably blew them off on ARFCOM, right? Or just gave them away to people, took them to events or something because I wanted to, like that was part of the thing. Is the early on gun community was great because it was smaller. You knew almost everyone, and you went to the same shoots. And a lot of the things that we're missing now, and we're going to try to bring back, is the actual enjoyment in person, the event type thing where you go and you get together with a bunch of these people that you've known on the site, and you understand this could be interesting because I don't get along with so-and-so. And when you get together, you realize you have this passion and this love for stuff, and that all that crap goes out the window.
Man, I couldn't agree more.
You start bonding again on a closer level, and you say, and all these shoots were great because we had ARs and nobody did, but other people had other cool stuff, and it was, hey, you always said, hey, shoot my rifle.
Yeah.
Shoot this. You're going to love it.
Have some
and
fun.
you spread that, right, that contagious love and passion for a platform that you liked.
Yeah.
And we addicted a ton of people to ARs because they'd
They're
never
cool.
shot them before.
Yeah.
And they're like, this is sick. And then
Yeah.
you'd hear stories, dude, I took it to the range and everybody was staring at me like I had leprosy because I'm shooting a gun that they didn't even know was illegal. Like they thought I was in the military coming to shoot here.
Yeah.
And it's just a contagious thing. And I remember the first time I shot like a machine gun was at one of these shoots, and just the ability that someone's just say, hey, just come shoot this. It's all cool. And we always shared, right? And we had that. And I think we've lost a little bit of that now because we don't hang out as much in person as we should.
It's so true
really
because
need to do
we're
that
on
more
these
often.
things
Yeah.
all the time. And you know what? I do agree with you. Technology has enriched our lives in many respects, but it's also created some fissures. And one of those fissures is, as you mentioned, we have substituted this for doing this. Yeah. And going out to the range and having those types of events. I couldn't agree with you more about that. I mean, I think part of the problem that we have within our industry is we're close, but yet we're far.
Yeah.
And things like events that bring people together that you can, and try to put at the forefront, hey, we're just trying to get together to have fun and promote something that we all share a love for, which is, firearms and what they symbolize to us. They don't symbolize what many people try to make them symbolize. To us, they symbolize freedom and independence and liberty and freedom to choose our path in our lives and all these other things. And granted, not everybody may believe that in a sense, but I think a lot of people within
the majority of this.
Exactly.
The one thing I love about the ARFCOM community is they've always been passionate about each other. Like if I had to say what are my favorite top things about ARFCOM and running it, the number one would be the fact that the community has always come together for a person in need, somebody who's hurt and somebody who's struggling. And you don't have to be vocal about it. You don't have to be like, hey, look at me, I'm sharing. You just had to be a part of it. Yeah. Like, just send them some money, go help out with cleanup, go do something to take care of people. And that was what the community was really known for. It was really a group that came together when someone was in trouble. Everyone got together and fixed it. And we still have that now. It's just a little bit different. I mean, again, when you go from 500 people to 1,000 people to 10,000 people to 100,000 people to a million people a month, you're not going to have the same relationship. You can't get to know everybody.
It's impossible.
Right? It's like going to a high school with 15 people and going to a high school with 1,500 people.
It's so true. I mean, and you're right. And that's a wonderful thing to see, that type of growth, that type of interest in the AR or the firearms industry, whatever you want to call it. And it's not without its thorns, if you will. Like every rose has a thorn. And in this case, that is, with that many people, it's hard to find connection. Even though the connection should be their love for firearms and all that it symbolizes, there's still a difficult time in trying to connect.
I think part of that is what society teaches us. Like right now,
interesting.
We learn lessons from what we call the enemy or the other side, people who are against the 2A. And we learn tactics from them. And we learn bad habits from them as well, because a lot of people think, well, in order to beat them, we need to use the same tactics or we need to change.
Give me an example of what you mean.
Anything. I mean, the fact that we can't even have conversations sometimes with each other.
Interesting.
Right? Like, and you and I don't agree on something.
Yeah.
And I don't want to put up with it. Let's use Trump as an example, because since he's constantly in the center of all things.
Okay.
And he probably likes it there, which I don't mind. It's there's people who just don't like him, and they can't see past the good that he's doing.
Absolutely.
Because they don't like the personality. Yeah. But and it's hard to have a conversation with somebody who is at that point because they don't want to hear anything. They don't want to listen. They don't want. True. And we've learned that from the left, who just will demonize something and then you can't talk about it.
Absolutely.
Right?
It's so true, and I love how you said, we've taken some of their tactics and we've tried to employ them. And I feel like, maybe there could be let's maybe recognize a few things that they've done well. Grassroots movements.
Of course. Yes.
Grassroots movements on the anti-gun community is strong, and their game...
And they can mobilize so
exactly.
fast. Yeah.
So those are ways that we could learn and maybe do similar things, but that's, again, where we have a disconnect. We're not connected like that. We have the numbers, but we don't have that cohesiveness that we sometimes see in the anti-gun. Yeah. So that's frustrating, because I agree that some of those things, some of those tactics are not productive. They serve they're productive for the anti-2A community because that's what they want them to be, but they're not necessarily productive for us.
It's also a little different because as a 2A community, we've always had a positive and a negative force, and that's been the NRA. And the NRA has been great for us because it was this powerhouse group that represented a majority of us, let's say. And we could feel comfortable saying, okay, I'm going to give them money for the year, and they're going to fight for me. And that was it. That was your commitment for the year was, hey, I gave the NRA money, and now I feel like I've accomplished
done my
anything,
thing.
right? And that's it. And so the negative of that is the NRA has been around a long time, and so we've been used to that. And the problem now is, A, the NRA isn't what it was. And B, we've got this mentality now that if we just kind of let someone else do our fighting for us, it will get done. And that's what we've been trying to overcome is you've got to be able to mobilize. No matter what it is, whether it's if things get worse, and we need to get together for whatever purpose, we've got to be able to do that. And we've got to be able to count on each other and understand, and the left's done this really well because they didn't have that. They didn't have this powerhouse that kind of handled all the big fights.
Yeah.
So they started with little movements and utilizing, and again, tech and everything else of let's
worked.
Mobilize. And they've done a great job with it.
It's true.
So
I love how you have, to me, that is a huge problem that I see within our community is the fact that, and I was going to get to this later in the show, but we can, since we're kind of on the subject, the problem that I see is people are quick to point fingers and blame, but they're not quick to try to and do something about it. Yeah. And I don't mean that, like, let's be honest. Everybody's got their own lives, and they probably got plenty on their plate, and there's all sorts of other stuff coming at them. But passing that responsibility on, even if it's the best of intentions. I mean, the ILA does do good work, but they are the amount of work that they are getting done is probably not as much as if we all work together to try to get work done. And that's what I'm like, okay, we have to recognize that organization, no matter how good they are, they're not going to be able to get everything done for us. We just can't pass that on to them. Of course,
and as we've seen that now, as they've been falling apart, right, and rightfully so, that they've lost so much power and credibility. I mean, it's funny to see the left, the political side of it, still claim like, oh my gosh, we're still scared of the NRA. The NRA is this boogeyman, and us that are in the community understand that NRA is a shell. There's very little of it left because of we're going to call it the mismanagement and abuses against the membership, but they've lost a lot of power.
I agree.
They're not, 5-10 million people behind them. I'd be impressed if they had 1 million people that were still behind them. And it's a sad statement because that was a group that represented us and did a lot of our fighting for us. But we can still do that. Now we have groups, the Second Amendment Foundation. There's other groups out there that are fighting for us that we're doing, and I think people are quick to support them, which is absolutely wonderful. And if you guys out there, aren't supporting anyone, please take the time to look at it because it does help to get these organizations funding and the ones that are acting on our behalf. But we still need to get out there and do things ourselves.
I couldn't agree with you more. And one of the things too that I try to what really bothers me is, and the left just sits back and kind of pokes the bear and watches what happens. And what I mean by that is they'll just they'll start something, and before you know it, there's all this infighting within our own community, as opposed to us working together and recognizing,
it's the old grenade. You throw the grenade in and you walk away and you see what kind of chaos it creates, and then everybody's fighting each other because they didn't know who threw the grenade. So was it you, was it me?
Exactly.
We see a lot of that, and I think we've got to get better with it. The one thing that, like I said, the whole Trump thing is the same thing, is we have a hard time respecting each other now, which never was before. And if we have the same foundation and we look at each other and we say, hey, look, at our core roots, we're patriots, right? We love this country. We believe in the Constitution. We should be able to find common ground to go and get whatever our mission is completed, right?
Agreed.
And we should put aside the differences, because I have no problem in you believing differently than I do, because that's human nature, right? We all have different lives. Like you said earlier, we're all busy with our own stuff. We've got families to take care of. We're busting our butt working. You got to worry about taxes and the IRS all the time. You got all these other things that are that real world as an adult you deal with. But if we don't take the time to cherish this, and that's what I love about ARFCOM, is they're a group of people who cherish the Second Amendment. And if we do not act on it and we leave somebody else to fight for us, we are going to lose those rights. They're going to be eroded. And I love the fact that we've learned from our past that we're not going to give an inch. And I know sometimes people like me will seem like assholes, right? Like, well, why can't they, see the benefit of this small law? Well, because every time we give an inch, they take a mile. And it goes one thing and then another and another. So the buck stops, right? We've got to stop letting them take away our rights, because as soon as they take a little bit, they won't give it back.
So first of all, I could not agree with you more. And I take it one step further. And this is strategy that I've seen employed in other areas. But whatever the situation is, when the anti-2A starts to hem and haw, they are always coming to the table with the thing that they want to talk about, whatever it is, okay? You want to come to the table because you want to, hey, no, we're going to push back. The buck stops here. But what has been a practice in the past is that when you come to the table, you're making an agreement that you're going to make some concessions and compromises, right? And in those cases, is what you're talking about, those little things that we've been given. Okay, well, we're not going to do the big 100% thing, but we're going to go ahead and give ground on this little 10% thing. And that is the win that they're looking for. It's like the death by 1,000 cuts.
Exactly.
And so what I'm proposing to people is that we shouldn't have this idea about negotiating an agreement that they come to the table with. They come to the table with the terms that they want, and then we negotiate how, okay, well, let's get a little bit of this and a little bit of that, and we'll call it a win. No, we cannot do that anymore.
Stop cold turkey.
Absolutely.
And say, the line's been drawn.
You want to argue about your magazine capacity bans? Go right on ahead. Not going to even lift a finger, because I'm not going to come to that table. Not going to even have an argument. And you take that power from them. Now, granted, in the in the lawmaking aspects, yes, we probably do need to kind of still get in there. But from the debate scenario or the conversation scenario, no.
Well, if people understood, all right, so if we wanted to have conversations and we wanted to have real give and take, well, it takes give and take.
Exactly.
And they don't want to give and take. People who are doing this are just taking. And the other part that I have a problem with is they don't even understand, right? So you have people who are completely ignorant of a topic trying to dictate the rules around that topic.
It's so true. Like
the fact that a 9mm can blow your lungs out your back.
Yeah, I know.
That might be a little bit off, but that's what they think. That's what they see. They see, oh my gosh, that AR could murder an entire city because it's going to drop a nuke on them.
Yeah.
I mean, you remember that CNN article years ago where they had all the attachments you could put on it, right?
It's crazy.
Like the ignorance of people who are trying to push the laws, that's part of the problem.
It totally is.
The other part is obviously like the give and take. Like they're pushing this. They don't want people under 21 to be able to buy a gun because they're not responsible enough and they're problematic. Well, why the hell do they have the right to vote? I mean, I don't want to sound like a douchebag, but if we're gonna say you're an adult at this age, then everything should be at that age, right?
I agree.
And like the left always makes that argument, and I don't necessarily want to mean the left because maybe I'm throwing, but the point is, the point is there's people who look at things from a weird angle and they don't look at it from another opposing angle. So the same thing we talked about with like the injections, right? So for the vaccines for COVID, it was the whole my body, my choice thing went out the window.
Yeah.
Right? How quickly that argument disappeared because they want to tell you what to do and no one even understood what the vaccine was. They are saying, oh, if you get this shot, you won't ever have it. You won't carry it. You won't spread it. You will be
trust us.
A perfect person, right?
Yeah.
So that's why we want you to take it. And we're on booster 4 or 5, and they finally accept the fact that, oh yeah, you can get it with your vaccine
and you can spread it
but we still want you to take it.
Yeah.
So
because we don't want to admit that we were wrong or that we made a mistake.
It's also money. I mean,
there's that. Absolutely, we want to keep making a profit from all of this. I love that. That's so true. But I think I really want to get more into the 2A stuff and community activism, if you will, and because that sometimes that word can conjure up a negative in a sense. But, activism at its root is not negative. It has been used and it has been exploited for sure to be negative. But community activism is actually a very good thing because it brings people together and brings people together on a single issue that they can all unite and agree with. We might have our differences on all the other topics, but we agree on this, and this is what we're trying to do. So I love it for that. But let's get back to the beginnings of AR15.com because, again, you are kind of like a custodian of history. You have a lot. I want to talk about like some of the dirty little secrets and controversy from early on that it's water under the bridge now. Enough time has passed that maybe we can kind of
gun people hold grudges.
Yeah, of course they do. They're very sensitive.
I don't know if enough time's passed.
Well, they're very sensitive, but the industry is not without its own controversies. It's not without its own dirty little secrets. It's not without the backstabbing and all the dirty stuff that happens in any other industry. You saw all of that. You had a front row seat in some cases to a lot of that.
Yeah. I don't want to say that trouble follows me, but
it's okay. It does.
There's things in the industry that we've done that have really not gone over well initially.
Okay.
I mean, let's start at the beginning.
I would love that.
When the site got a little bit bigger, there was enough people there. We started a thing called I don't even know back then. It was an SER Special Edition Rifle.
Okay.
And then we changed it to Special Edition Black Rifle, and there's a history behind that if people remember. But and the idea behind it was we were gonna try to create a rifle build that we could introduce to people at a lower price point, like a group buy.
Okay.
It was like the very first group buy, right?
I like it.
Internet-based. But what we ran into is, so we'll run into the story in case people that remember it and people who don't. A small company broke off. A couple of people left Armalite and started a company called Rock River Arms.
I remember that.
And they were just getting started, so we did... we kind of started talking to them about putting together an AR to really introduce, like an entry level to get people in, right? Again, not a lot of people had ARs. They're still pricey, $1,500.
Yeah.
So we wanted to kind of find a way to, introduce it and find a partner who was willing to go crazy. And they wanted to build a name for themselves. Rock River, most people know who they are right now. But what we did was we kind of did a group buy, and we lowered the price of an AR to like $700.
Wow.
I think it started actually under that, like $650 or something. But
wow.
And then we had to up it as we went, and we sold hundreds of rifles. And the whole idea was, let's get more rifles in people's hands, let them understand that it's out there, and put it at a price point where they could afford it, right? And it's an addiction once you get your first rifle, and you start with an entry-level stuff or something that might not be
for sure
the end game, but man, it gets you excited, and you
the foot in the door,
and you get that addiction. So when we did that, it really did not go over well with the industry. Now, back then, there weren't a lot of manufacturers that we had, like the Bushmaster, Armalite, DPMS, a couple players that are familiar even now.
Okay.
And there weren't a lot of AR manufacturers.
Yeah.
So when we come out and we're basically undercutting them by half.
Yeah.
And we're putting these guns that you can only get on ARFCOM, and people are buying them like crazy. I mean, we sold, I don't remember how many guns, 400 guns, let's say. And which back then there was like,
that's a lot.
Let's say there's only like 2,500 people on the site, or even 10,000. But to sell that many guns, and we could have sold more. We had to put a limit on it, but we got really put ourselves in a tough spot, because here's companies that were supporting the community, and we had great relationships with them. We had great friendships with them, and now all of a sudden we were kind of effing with business.
Yeah.
They didn't understand what we were trying to do, and we said, hey, look, this is going to grow the industry. This is going to create so many more new customers for you. This just,
you have to
kind of believe in us.
Yeah.
That we're not doing this to screw you over. Well, it didn't go very well. Within 6 months,
most of those companies are looking only at a quarterly.
Well, they're looking at their bottom line.
Yeah, they're looking at a bottom line.
And this is a potential
quarterly
customer of ours.
Yeah.
Or, a number of potential customers that we're going to now get something similar for half the price or less. And it caused them to lower their prices a little bit, and then a little bit more. And then what they started seeing was, as they lowered their prices, they began to sell more.
Surprise.
And that entry-level price point all of a sudden was creating so many new customers. I mean, this was the big AR explosion, right, in the marketplace.
Wow.
Where all of a sudden we went from very few AR owners to, like let's say we were at 2,500 people on the site. Well, that thing blew up, right? And it was 25,000 people because now people were getting into it. They were sharing it with their friends. They were taking it to the range. They were letting people shoot it. And it was an addictive passion, right? Like, you've got to have an AR.
Wow.
And so it went from we were, persona non grata here with a Bushmaster who was pretty pissed off, and who are, everybody at that point, and not to single them out. And it ended up creating this, AR kind of explosion, right? It was all of a sudden, it became the number one platform within it didn't happen overnight, but it was within a couple of years, because the prices came down, more and more people were buying. You couldn't get a $750 one again, but $1,000, right? And it was still that borderline, because $1,500, $1,000 is a big difference. So we saw that kind of explode, and more people got into it. The community got bigger, and it actually benefited all those companies. And obviously now, you can't say anything about a firearm without AR being introduced, like being mentioned, right? Like,
it's true.
Have a conversation with somebody and they're a gun person, and you're like, well, what kind of guns do you own? Like, what do you have? And if you don't hear an AR or an AK or some kind of, so they got a SCAR, they're cool, but you get that AR, or you're kind of, hey, have you ever shot one? Kind of a thing. It's very unusual to kind of find a real gun person, a fanatic that doesn't have an AR, right?
Like, it's true.
Who doesn't?
It's really, if you really were to, I imagine there's maybe somebody, or a handful.
Yeah, there's probably a couple people
but
out there who are still living in the
it's just
past.
not, that's just not the reality. Okay, so question about that. So you ruffled some feathers.
Yeah, I'm going to blame that one on Ed, by the way.
Okay.
Ed and I.
Fair enough. But did any of those companies at any point in time recognize, okay, that actually was a good move?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so they kind of
took
gave
a
you
few months of complete hell.
Okay.
Of being, yelled at and kind of saying, hey, you're destroying our business, you're destroying our marketplace. And the same thing, I'm sure Rock River got a lot of crap from the industry as well. Like,
sure.
Hey, you're these new,
you're part of this
company,
problem,
but you're destroying the marketplace that we have. So I'm sure that, everybody had a voice in back then, and everybody heard from each other. It was a very small community. Most people talked to each other. Everybody was friendly with one another, as far as I can remember from back then. Yeah. It turned out to be, you guys, this was the greatest thing that ever happened, because now all of a sudden we're a mainstream product in the firearms world. Because even back then, the NRA never cared, and it took years for the NRA to say, we're going to protect ARs. They were always like, no.
Yeah.
Hunting rifles, shotguns, pistols.
Yeah.
AR people can go F themselves, right? And nobody cared about us. We were there's a reason with the black rifle. We were like, the little niche that nobody wanted to deal with.
True.
The crazies.
Yeah.
And that changed it, because now all of a sudden, now everybody, name a company that doesn't have like an AR, right?
It's
like
true.
they don't have a version or a platform. So it's a completely different world. And we went from the little bastard stepchild to all of a sudden this, the kid that couldn't do wrong kind of a thing. Like you saved the industry, or you grew the industry quite a bit, and it was a love that we didn't see from before. Like, you guys were right, so we did see that. And the companies, again, a credit to this industry is, even if something weird happens, something bad happens, if we pitch in together, or if we, you kind of explain what the reasoning is or what the benefit is, even if it's just a chance that you're taking, it usually pays off, and you'll have each other's backs.
Yeah.
I think the problem becomes when companies fight against each other, or feel like they're at odds with one another instead of working together.
Yeah.
And that happens a lot too. Like, hey, a company's known for one product, and another company is known for another product, and then they start moving into each other's spaces, and then all of a sudden it's a fight, because we were happy with you in this spot, and you were happy with us in this spot. Why are you moving into ours?
Yeah.
Right. And that does happen, and I can understand that too, because you really want to do the best job you can, right? You're an expert in your product, and you're not messing with anyone else's business. Like, this is my space.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of one of the things that we've seen.
Well, so one of my observations from that time period, which I think parallels what what you saw was when we saw the students in the classes, and so the next step after purchasing is learning.
Yep.
Educating yourself on its use, and that encompasses all things related to the application. And so when we started to see when we started seeing more and more students in the the rifle classes that we were doing, there was a period where the students were coming and they might have had these entry-level guns, and the entry-level guns would do great for sporting, plinking, maybe even competing.
But now you needed that.
Exactly.
You needed to grow that passion.
And so what they ended up finding out was, okay, wait a minute, this is going to suffice for this activity, but now I need to take it to the next level. And that's what I mean by parallel, because you brought in all these new...
Me.
Well,
People
the organization.
We opened up the knowledge and we shared it, which again is the biggest problem with anything in life is if you don't have the knowledge, you can't make a decision on it.
Yeah.
Right? And if you don't understand things, if you don't know what they are, what's out there as a choice,
yeah, you're
going to buy what everybody else has, right? Until you realize, holy moly, this thing is something I can own, and let's get it, and let's... So
well,
it grows that, because that knowledge... With knowledge comes all that stuff, all the growth, the responsibility, the expansion,
It's true. Because I would have students, I would go back in the day, my tour of the country had me going to several locations every year. Like I would just circle back the next year in the same locations. And we would sometimes be there multiple times. And what I saw many times was the student that started with the entry level. Then they take the entry level and they start to modify it and adapt it. And then like the next year I see them, they've moved up to the next tier of firearms.
Yep.
And all of that means that they're investing their time, talent, and treasure in the industry. So that benefits the industry, because now this person has educated themselves on all things as it relates to what they're trying to do.
Right.
And they're making better choices, but they're also investing in the industry. And, that was I think that's hard for some people to see, because it doesn't happen overnight. It takes time to see that happen.
And even as an individual, for you to take the gun out, and an entry-level gun, and play on the range.
Yeah.
Right, it's fun.
Yeah,
and,
absolutely.
And a lot of those guns ended up in their kids' hands, right?
Absolutely.
Like my daughter has one of my, actually I think I sold it, but had one of my first guns.
Yeah.
Right, because it was just my first AR.
I was just at the range a couple of this weekend, I think it was, maybe it was Saturday, and I was shooting, and next to me was a gentleman who was just so excited, because during COVID, he managed to build his first AR.
Yeah,
and
which I was going to touch on too.
Yeah, and he was just... I was over here kind of trying not to grin, because I didn't want him to get the wrong impression, right? But I'm watching.
I like that short, those shirts you're wearing.
Yeah.
No,
but it was kind of it was kind of cool to see that, and he had.
But it's the cool thing is it gives us genuine enjoyment. We get so excited when somebody has that first experience.
It's true.
I love taking new shooters to shoot.
Yeah.
Well, okay, I used to.
Right.
Now I just don't have the time, or I don't find that I have the time. But that was one of my favorite things was putting a gun in a woman's hands, right, or a new shooter's hands, and
absolutely
saying, just here's what you do, just try it on and see how it feels, because we can call it a shit-eating grin that they would have.
It's so true.
Absolute just amazement in them, this the peace that you can get. They don't understand that it's a very relaxing thing. Depending on what event or what sport you're shooting, but going out and just plinking, or just going out and just shooting, at a range, it's a relaxing. It's kind of a slow pace. You go at your own pace. You don't have to worry about it. I mean, it's not 3-gun, but your enjoyment of it, and it's really a personal type thing. You want to improve yourself.
Yeah.
It's not necessarily a competition thing. You're just competing against yourself. You're trying to push yourself. Oh, I want to hit this. I want to get, and then you start improving your gun again. You start
figuring it out.
Yeah.
You start learning.
I need a better optic. The optic wasn't off. My barrel's kind of crappy.
You do, and it's really fun to watch that, and that's kind of what I perceived with that gentleman next to me, was that he had taken the time to research, and he purchased, and he put it together, and he came, and he was just excited to share it with all the people in his group, and like, come on in and shoot it. It's so much fun. You're gonna love it. So
that's what I love about the
that
community.
is it. And there was a good group of people that were there. There was probably about 6 or 7 of them, and they would kind of like float in and out of the range. They'd go out in the lounge, relax, and then they'd go back in and shoot. So it was nice. I was kind of back there just, sheepishly grinning that I was trying not to, invade their fun, if you will, but I was enjoying it as well.
And I hope that the people in this community still have that, right? And that's one thing I always worries me is we're not always the nicest to the new shooter, right? The new guy comes in and you're just like, oh God, it's a new guy.
Man, I'll tell you.
But they're the future of this. Sport of this, even of keeping the Second Amendment around. If we don't embrace the kids that are shooting and the wives that are shooting and the new people that are coming on board, those things strengthen us. There's 20 million whatever new gun owners in this country. We should be embracing them all. And I want to see people at the range with that big grin because they know that person, that's their first time shooting it, and how much enjoyment they get. Like, that's something we should all share in because it's part of all of us.
I love hearing you say that.
So.
And you know what? It's frustrating because you're right. We sometimes have a way of mishandling. I want to think deep down people have maybe good intentions. They just maybe have a bad way of connecting with a new person.
I think most people just maybe.
I think that's
still there. Yeah,
there are jerks.
You're going to have it, especially as the community's grown, right? We're talking how many millions of gun owners.
Yeah.
You're going to have a subset that are either they don't want to deal with other people. They don't want to share their stuff. They're too private.
Yeah.
But I think the majority of gun owners are in the same boat. Like I said, I want to do these events again because doing events in your area is important. And I don't know how many people get out and do that. Again, COVID kind of screwed everything up.
It did.
Getting out with other people who have this passion, sharing at a local level is important, and then at a national level is important too, because we want to pull people together. We want to enjoy it and kind of celebrate both the things that we have in common that we love, but also our differences.
I couldn't agree with more. I mean, that's the thing. I get so wrapped around the axle sometimes with this because, I sometimes see the solution very clearly, but I feel like it's difficult to relay that to people and get the buy-in. Like, I'm like, it's not that hard for us to come together, have an event, and enjoy it, and then let's move this event to the next township, the next city. Yeah. Let's move it to a state level. Let's move it to a national level. Let's organize and mobilize and do this. And there's plenty of logistical patterns that allow us to do that, but we're just not doing it. We're not taking that next step. And maybe it's because nobody wants to be at the helm of that, or maybe nobody.
It's a big undertaking.
It is. I agree. But I'm 100% behind in supporting whatever activities you guys and we want to do together in that sense, because I think
because I didn't really want to announce it, but we are going to look at putting together a national event, hopefully next year.
I love it,
and you'll be expected to go.
I will be there.
We really want to bring it back to what we did before. I think the last event we did was a Rock Castle 3-gun shoot, but before that was like gun stock. I don't know if people remember that. We did Black Rifle Convention as well years ago. It's been a long time.
Let's do it.
And I really think that it's something that benefits us. And it's either going to work or it's not going to work. And I just don't see it failing, because
I don't either.
If we end up with a couple thousand people there, it's a couple thousand people, and that's going to be that same infectious behavior.
Exactly. And the next one
year
grows and grows. And you got to start at the bottom, unfortunately. And that's sometimes, I think, a deterrent for people. It's like, oh, man, well, you know what? It's not going to be that successful. We're going to have maybe only 1,000 people.
No pressure on us now, because now it's out there in public. But we'll probably make the announcement.
Good.
I don't know.
Well, we're going to make it now.
Well, now. But
more details to follow.
Much more details to follow.
Details to follow. Well, I look forward to being an integral part of that, because that's important.
I want to have fun, man. I want to enjoy it, and I want to get back to us seeing each other for who we are, and not, it's one thing to have this persona
Yeah.
I call it, online. And there's a lot of people who are like me who are just the same asshole online, whether they are in person. But there's people who are a little different. But when you get together, like the fun thing that I had on the very first time we did a big event was we had all the troublemakers show up.
Imagine that.
For all the ARFCOM people who remember, like the McCoozy and the RBAD showed up. And they were the bigger troublemakers there. We had like NSF JoJo and like all the cool people. Sinister, I'll give you some love there too. But in person, we all got along. We all had a great time, and I grew friendships out of people who I could not stand.
Oh, I love hearing that.
And I think that's a part of it is you just realize, I'm a jokester and I cause trouble, and I really don't mean it, But they had the gumption to show up, right?
Yeah, good for them.
And to just say, hey, look, I'm so-and-so. And we're like, yeah, we could tell. But they were good people.
Nice.
And it actually, it sparked so many relationships. Like one of the other best things about ARFCOM is the relationships, right? So we always have each other's backs, which I mentioned before, and everybody kind of as a community will kind of get behind a cause, take care of people. That's my favorite thing. But the other thing is we come together really well in person, and like people they're just so good to one another when they actually get. So you may find somebody online that drives you nuts, but when you're in person, that may end up being a relationship you cherish forever. And seeing that through my dad, and the relationships and the friendships he's got, it is like a great joy for us, right? Like,
I love hearing
like
that.
The fact that my dad's closest friends or most of his closest friends are ARFCOMers that he just absolutely loves, is a huge, win for me, because at least in the efforts that I put forth, I can always say, you know what, I improved his life, right?
I love hearing that.
He made friendships with people that will last for years. And I think it's the same with a lot of others out there.
Yeah.
You're going to make some friends because you have so many things in common, and you don't realize it until you get together and you have a beer and you're just like,
right
holy
on.
crap, we have this in common, and this in common, and we see the same thing.
It's so true. Well, there's no filters. There's no there's nothing to stop I guess the genuineness when you're sitting across from somebody talking.
When you're sharing a beer, it's all going to come out, right?
It's true. And I think it's just a much better way for people to connect in person. Like, I love everything that we have now technology-wise, but I still miss, like, and I noticed it maybe 2 or 3 years. I definitely noticed it during COVID that I miss being around people, even if I don't like them. Yeah. I miss that.
Well, I'm more than happy to risk an ass beating or, being made fun of or whatever it takes, even if I got to put my life on the line in order to bring people together.
I love that.
It's worth it, because it's people don't understand the connectivity. If they haven't gone to an event, whether it doesn't matter if it's a 3-gun shoot that you shoot with a buddy or people that you don't know before, the bonds that you create in these things, because you start putting aside like, okay, well, I love Trump and you hate Trump. But at the end of the day, Trump has nothing to do with this. This has to do with my passion for this country, the Second Amendment, the First Amendment, like everything that we have. Like at the end of the day, I care about my family, and now I have to learn to care about yours. Yeah, and that's the lesson that you learn when you meet people, because
it's true. I like that. That's a really good thing.
You've got that. So
all right, let's back up one little bit. Okay. So AR15.com was created in New York, but it somehow ended up in Texas.
So communist New York. We lived in Western New York for a long time. And there's this thing, I don't know if anyone's heard about it, called the SAFE Act. So what happened was all the companies and all the people were at SHOT Show, and overnight New York passed the SAFE Act. So we're at the show one day. The next day, ARs are now illegal for citizens, so you can't sell. So for us, at that point in time, ARFCOM was big. I don't even know what year we're looking at now. My mind goes. But we had purchased some land, purchased some buildings. We were going to put in, we started building a store for those in New York who've been there. We never really had an official grand opening. We were like a week away, and we shut everything down. But we had also purchased, we were going to put in a training facility and stuff. And we really had this grand plan to create a destination for firearms people. Wow. Right? Come in, build your gun, buy parts, buy whatever you want, hang out with the ARFCOM crew, go shoot on the range, go do whatever, just to hang out. Like really a fun way to bring the community together on a daily basis, right? Like, or a weekly or monthly basis.
Okay.
And stupid SAFE Act gets passed in the middle of the night.
In the middle of the night, literally.
And all of a sudden we get home and we're like, well, this manufacturing idea really went to hell because now we're
illegal.
We're illegal. So you can't have, McDonald's making hamburgers illegal the next day. Well, who the hell are you going to sell it to? You might as well close down and move on. And New York was like, well, but you can still sell to police. But even in the law, they screwed up and you couldn't sell to like retired police because they had to get that adjusted. In the
Oh my
grandfather.
God.
So the law was kind of a mess. It was passed in the middle of the night, and it was really New York giving gun companies, and Remington was still in New York at that point, but giving them the middle finger and saying, we don't want anything to do with you guys.
Yeah, it's true.
Like, this
That's
is
exactly
step
what it
one
was.
and go F yourself. So that started, and and my brothers know this too, but I'd been the catalyst to stay in New York. I had been like, they wanted to move and they wanted to go to a friendlier gun state and all this other stuff. But I knew my dad didn't want to move. My parents and my wife's family is from the area as well. And I really loved the area. Western New York is absolutely beautiful.
I agree.
You've got the Adirondacks, a couple hours drive.
It is gorgeous.
The Finger Lakes are right there. You've got Lake Ontario. I mean, there's a lot that are positives there.
I agree.
Schools, land values, everything it's really cool. So it's a beautiful place. So we didn't want to leave, and I'd kept my brothers there kind of because I thought, why uproot us? It just wasn't worth it.
Okay.
Well, SAFE Act passes, and that goes out the window.
See ya.
Right. So my wife is now grouchy with me. My parents are not. My dad understood, but my parents are grouchy with me because I'm like, we're effing gone. Like yesterday. This is it. This was the last straw. I can't take this.
We're not
anymore.
moving. We're leaving.
Yep, pretty much. So that's really what precipitated the move to Texas. Was we said we're done with communist New York. We're going to go find a pro-gun state and move. And this, I think, was there was a couple companies in New York that were looking at the same thing. You had dealers who all of a sudden are like, what the hell am I going to do as a gun shop owner? Because
that's like 1/4 to 1/3 of the inventory.
Yeah, and you had to move it. You couldn't have it anymore, so you had to move it to out of state. I know guys that were moving their guns to Pennsylvania and stuff like that because they weren't supposed to have them, or they weren't even going to sell them anymore. So then we started the whole where are we going to go kind of adventure, and we looked at a bunch of different states, and we ended up settling on Texas. We love being here. Love this state. We've been here 12 years.
Wow.
And definitely consider ourselves Texans. I mean, our mentality fits here.
Good.
Right? Like, we were conservative, hardcore, Second Amendment, pretty much as hardcore as you get.
Yeah.
People that we just wanted, we believe in small government and everything else, but we just fit values-wise. So when we moved here,
that's awesome.
It was an easy transition because we just,
you fit in.
You felt like you were wanted to.
Yeah.
Right? It was gracious enough. We went to the governor's office and we got to have conversations with them and feel wanted again. Like I said, it was a completely different animal.
I love
from
it.
going to a state where they don't want to even acknowledge your existence to going to a state that was proud to have you and happy to have you. And
wow.
So we've been here for a long time. Don't miss New York whatsoever. I don't think I ever want to. I think I tell my wife all the time, I don't even want to step foot in that state.
I was going to ask that. That was going to be my next question. Do you miss it? Do you want to go back?
I miss our house. I miss things about it, like the country and everything.
For sure.
But no,
That's it.
I don't want to go back.
I'm done. Okay. All right. Well, I'm glad I brought you to this point because we actually have some questions from forum members. And I'm going to ask you. And this first question is going to be the hardest question.
I figured I answered most of the stuff already. Probably.
Not yet.
Things
No.
All right.
I strategically picked this one. And I'm going to tell you right now that this is going to greatly affect your position in this state. Just putting it out there right now.
Oh, it's a chilly question.
Yes. Beans or no beans?
All right. So in New York,
be careful, sir.
In the Northeast, I think chili with beans is normal. Right? So that's what I grew up with. And my dad makes a mean chili. And now, having been in Texas, I can definitely say, chili down here, it's no beans. And I know people in the North will say, oh, that's meat soup. Okay, but that's the roots of it. And you can have chili down here with beans, but it's called chili with beans. Yeah. So, so that doesn't bother me. So I learned. I corrected. Hey, and I'll assimilate.
I'll assimilate. I love it. That's awesome. When in Rome, I love it. Okay, well, all right. You pass. You may stay.
How long have you been in Texas?
I was born here.
All right, so I'll take that then as a compliment.
Yes, you may stay. Like I tell people, I remember I was on a podcast years ago, and one of the hosts asked this weird question. He's like, "What are you?" I'm like, "What do you mean? What am I?" He's like, "Well, what are you?" And I'm like, "Well, I'm an American. I'm an American by birth, but Texan by the grace of God." And he was just like, "Oh, dude, that was like fucking right on." I'm like, I don't know what you mean, but is that what you're looking for? All right, so that was first question. Well done. Next question. What is your favorite thread of all time?
Favorite thread of all time?
Yeah.
I don't know if I have a favorite thread of all time. There's been a lot of, we'll call them classic.
Okay, fair enough.
ARFCOM moments. Everything from good to bad. We have, there's stories that some of these poor folks have suffered through that, like some threads are just epic in a good way, and some of them are epic in a horrible way. I don't know how many people remember the Scat Man. That was a fun time.
Oh, God.
Burned into memory. Not a good one, but somebody just doing some really horrible stuff. So, yeah, I don't know. I think there's a lot of great stories. There's a lot of good. I'm trying to think if I have any kind of favorite.
That one that sticks out or you remember?
As a thread. I don't know. My problem is I'm getting old, and things just kind of blend together. And,
I get it.
Like right now, like a favorite thread, I really can't think. And there's probably as soon as I leave, I'll be like, oh crap, you know what my favorite thread was this.
Of course.
I do like a lot of the things. To me, the things that are more important, like we've already talked about, is things where people are helping each other.
Yeah.
Silly things like Opie. And actually, it's kind of ironic. I was trying to have the newest Opie with me on this, but we were going to bring Opie back and start sending him around. But Opie, I don't know if you know, Opie's our a possum that was a stuffed animal, and we pass him around to people.
Okay.
And people will take him on trips, would take him.
No way, that's a great.
To be at a children's hospital, whatever story Opie could add, and it traveled all over the world. We went through a number of Opies, and Opie was an important thing to Edward and his wife. So and we're gonna bring Opie back, and we're gonna start passing Opie around and send Opie on trips, and we'll see how long Opie lasts this time.
Okay, that
before
sounds.
He disappears.
First of all, that sounds awesome. What happened to? Is he buried with Jimmy Hoffa or something?
We don't know. It could be. It could be. We really.
We need to put like a
He
GPS
might have
tracker.
He might have found love.
Oh,
and just
fair enough.
Kind of.
He's just like living in a hole with a family of.
Yeah, it might work better if we try a live possum to send him around. There's less excuses to be lost, but I don't know if that's the legality of that and the chaos.
There might be some problems there. All right, well that's great, and I love hearing that. That actually is pretty cool. That works. All right, this next one is kind of it's a good one, but it'll be interesting to see how you respond. With the problem of cybercrime and scammers, what percentage of new accounts activated or attempted do you believe are done solely to commit crime?
Solely to commit crime, I think it's lesser. We do have a problem, which maybe this person's referring to, in terms of a couple of folks who are trying to scam people, and we're doing everything we can to keep them out. And there's some things that we've put into place which have helped a ton. They're a little restrictive on folks, and I do apologize for that, but our goal is to protect you guys as much as possible, to protect everyone out there. But we have just those people, as far as I know, in terms of that. Yep. The bigger question I would have thought was how many accounts are pro-gun versus non, and that's a tough one to find out, because we know that we're constantly in the center of mass attacks based on whether it's left groups or anyone who's trying to make us look bad just by posting things and then saying, hey,
we ran through that. And of course,
we ran through some of these operations where it's like, I'm going to post something horrible and then I'm going to report it like I'm not involved in it, and we had that when they were trying to shut down a bunch of sites a couple of years ago, and last year, maybe the year before that.
Nice.
So but yeah, it's actually not that bad in terms of illegal. There's stuff that people, and unfortunately part of any kind of sales site, doesn't matter if it's eBay or anything else, is you're going to eventually traffic in,
of course,
some illegal stuff because somebody's stolen something and is going to get rid of it. I mean, think of all of these mostly peaceful protests. I want to call them.
I like that. Mostly.
That's
they come out at night mostly.
But all that stuff, where do you think it got moved?
Yeah.
It gets moved on different sites, different channels, and different avenues. You think those people are keeping all that stuff? No, those people stole things to sell them and get money out of it.
Absolutely.
That's just part of what's out there. But I don't think there's that many people who specifically are using.
Well, I think the point is that you're aware of it and you are trying to combat it.
Yeah, that's if it happened to you again. A lot of the things that I do, I try to put myself in the shoes. And if somebody stole my guns and was moving them ARFCOM, I'd be pissed.
Yeah.
But how am I going to find out, right? Until it usually happens a little bit after.
I agree.
But in the old days, it actually happened more often than we'd see now, and that was a lot of people stealing stuff borrowing stuff from the military and selling it.
Borrowing it, I love that.
And I hate it because it impacts everybody. Because the person who bought it eventually loses the item; they're not going to get their money back.
Absolutely not.
So it's a horrible thing to go through.
Yeah.
So I definitely I don't want I don't want that happening on ARFCOM, but.
But
it's
there's
the inevitability. It's just like
only so
everything
much.
else.
There's only so much. The tighter you grip your hand, the more sand's going to fall through. So
it's a tough one. But I don't think there's that many people who are maliciously trying to take advantage of people.
I would agree with that
at this moment. So it's not too bad.
Well, one of the topics that I had for later in the show was to deal with, safeguarding the Constitution and our rights. And I feel like we really kind of hit on that, but I wanted to circle back real quick because what I'm hoping for is a call to action, like to try to get people to be more invested, because if they don't, it's a right and we shouldn't have to defend it.
Right.
But we are in a place now where
we've been in that place for
years, decades.
It's been
decades.
years that we've had to fight
decades.
for ourselves. Yeah.
And what I'm hoping for is that there's a call to action for people to be more involved in defending. And defending can take on a lot of different flavors, right? Defending could be something as simple as purchasing your first firearm.
Right.
Defending could be as far as using
organizing a march.
Organizing a march.
Yeah.
I was going to say, drafting a letter to, you're using your First Amendment right to draft a letter to a senator and complain about stuff. But, what are your kind of like recommendations for people that want to try to initiate some call to action? I know we're going to have an event and whatnot, but outside of that, what do you want to try to relay to the people here?
Yeah, what can we all do?
Exactly, at an individual level.
Yeah. What? Well, there's been some good topics on this, conversations about how our congressmen and senators actually handle things. Like if you write an email, they probably just delete it. If you write a letter, they have to actually go through it.
Interesting.
And we've gotten this from politicians who are admitting as much. I think that at the level that everyone can do it is continue to share the passion. First and foremost is this is our sport, but it's more than that. This is our right. And the best thing you can do to it is introduce somebody to it and spread the love of what we believe in. The Second Amendment is about not just home defense, but defending this country at its root, right? From doesn't matter whether it's
all
foreign,
enemies, foreign and domestic.
Exactly. It doesn't matter if it comes domestic or foreign, but we are the last bastion of defense for this country. And if people want to tell you otherwise, just remind them, what the Japanese said in World War II is behind every blade of grass is a rifle. No one wants to invade this country with 400 million firearms or whatever we have. That's insanity.
Yeah.
Well, it's not it's insanity for most folks, but it's not enough for us. Right?
Yeah.
I'm sure that most people out there are probably like me, and if we could buy a tank, we'd buy one tomorrow, right? And I may have looked a couple times.
I'm sure.
But yeah, like Biden jokes the other day, like, oh, well, you're gonna need an F-15 to fight, right? If you're gonna to stand up against. Well, as soon as you put them on sale for people, ARFCOM will be doing a group buy on fighter planes and tanks and anything else.
Yeah.
But the problem is the government doesn't allow that.
Yeah.
So it's a silly kind of thing for them to do. I know you'll be in that line right next to me.
Of course I will.
Right? Like, hey, we're going to pick
Don't mind
up.
me. I'm just going to take this for a spin.
Yeah. So the first thing would be just continue to embrace new shooters and introduce people to our sport.
It's a great
because
step.
that's going to
That's
gonna do
grassroots
more,
again.
Yeah, that's going to do more for us than even calling senators. Now, when there's something crazy, a law that's being discussed, I mean, people do this all the time. When ATF puts something up for discussion, you flood the ATF and you tell them,
No.
what you think of their wonderful ignorance in the law. Same thing with politicians. If a lot of this, because the internet's made things easier, we reach out to people that aren't in our states.
Yeah.
The most important thing, obviously, is to reach out to the person in your state and
100%.
voice and say, hey, look, I'm a constituent. I voted for you, or maybe not, but I am in your district or I'm in your state. And if you aren't going to represent my values and you're going to turn against me, I'm going to make it a point to either support an organization that's taking you out or be part of that movement to get rid of you and find somebody who believes in the Second Amendment, right? And it's important to do it at the local level and all the way through, because that's where you can make the biggest amount of change. And then you can reach out at the higher level, because we want to flood people who, are really not understanding this. Like, have a conversation versus just dump on someone.
I agree.
It doesn't help to send an angry voicemail like, hey, I'm going to come and crap on your lawn. It helps to say, hey, look, I would love to explain things to you and kind of show you what it is like for someone like me.
Yeah.
Right? If a woman shares a story of how the gun saved her from getting raped or saving her children from getting murdered or somebody breaking into their house, single mom, that's going to resonate more than a dude that just calls up and says, you're an asshole.
Yeah.
Right? Like, stop fighting this. I think sharing our stories, sharing like what our fears are and why this helps us, there's a lot of things that they don't consider, just like mental sanity.
Yeah.
A lot of people go out and shoot because it relaxes them. It gives them peace. They find themselves in that, and not in any kind of violent way. Just you have to focus when you're range shooting, you're target shooting. It's quieting the soul, right? And you have to do that. And some people don't understand that in the slightest.
Yeah.
So I think sharing like your personal, what benefits you, what kind of stuff, those things are going to resonate more with a politician or with somebody who doesn't have the knowledge. I mean, take your politicians shooting, right? Like, you can invite them and say, hey, come to the range with us. We'll introduce you. We'll let you shoot a couple things. It's on us. Yeah. Bring whatever security if you're comfortable, but we want you to be there to understand like why we believe in this. Yeah. So we can, share a beer afterwards, whatever it takes to get that kind of relationship going, and show them that it's not you're not at a point of being belligerent or way over the line and you're going to do something stupid. You want to actually educate, embrace, and kind of share that passion. I think those are the things that we sometimes lack, because, again, where we are now is different than when we were 5 or 10 years ago, where we could do those things. I think we're a lot shorter now because the world's taught us you don't need anything anymore except to bullshit something. You can lie about somebody, and as long as it makes it out online or spreads, that's truth until it's not.
Yeah, until they're called on it.
So they've poisoned our minds in a lot of ways, and it also created a lot of anger in this community.
I agree.
Where people are just itching for that line to be drawn, right, and to go forward. Where that should be the last option. We should still be sharing what we believe in, kind of doing the work that we need to avoid that, because if it comes to that, nobody wins.
I agree. I have two things on that. First of all, for those that are taking your words to heart, I have been, I've walked around with a bullseye on my back because I choose to engage with people in conversation about the Second Amendment, firearms, and whatnot. And I will tell you what I have learned in that time period, because some of these conversations have not been good. They've started off maybe good, but they've kind of deteriorated. And what I will tell you is this: my suggestion is to have your beliefs, have them really well thought out and articulated, so that you can share them with people, because that's the other problem. I think a lot of times you might believe in something, but you don't have a good way of articulating that in the public. But I also feel what's important is that you stand by your beliefs. If you do believe them, great. And I will have a conversation, be like, so Juan, I'd like to hear your opinion. I'm hoping that in this dialogue, I'll hear something that might help me to change my mind. All right. That's why I'm listening to you, because I want to hear what you have to say. Now, you may not change my mind, in which case you need to respect that. But I'm willing to listen to what you have to say. What is your viewpoint? What is your position? How does that affect me? How does that impact me? And then I ask you do the same in exchange. Listen to my point of view so that we can have this exchange of information. Right. And if you can do that, if you can have that type of conversation, it doesn't always work because there's, it's not, sometimes people don't believe. A lot of times. Yeah. Well, you're right. A lot of times. Yeah. But that's the difference, is that if you come at it from that perspective, you're coming at it from the high ground. And that's what we have lacked for so many years, is taking hold of the high ground. We're always kind of fighting uphill.
Defense, yeah.
Exactly. We need to be taking the high ground.
But the thing is, I think we as a community have always been beaten down
Absolutely.
So much that we started taking it for granted. Like I said, at a certain point,
true.
We said there's no more.
Yeah.
The line in the sand has been drawn. We are not giving an inch.
Absolutely.
And it's hard for people sometimes to understand that we can go back to being the people that were like that, like being a little more open-minded, having these conversations and accepting somebody else, not agreeing with us at the end of the conversation.
Absolutely.
Like, we can't take it in as an affront. You're not going to win every battle.
Absolutely. Right? And that's the hard part for a lot of people to recognize. Like, just because on both fronts, from our own community as well as the opponents. And what I try to get across is, like, it's not my job to change their mind. My job is to illustrate, articulate my beliefs and the why behind them. Right. And then if in listening to me, they have the courage to take a step back and really think about what I've said and say, all right, well, okay, that's different than what I thought, and maybe I need to rethink this. And then they go on their own.
That's a lost art, too.
It is.
That's the biggest thing we overcome now, or we have to try to overcome, is people do not want to have conversations.
It's true, because we have forgotten that. You're absolutely right. It is a lost art. But that's why I'm trying to provide a little bit of information about how to get back to it.
See, that's why I take the asshole approach.
That's one approach.
Which is when you have someone who is 100% anti-gun.
Yeah.
And they don't want to listen.
Yeah, well,
and they won't give you the time of day. You say, you know what? You're too much of a coward to come shoot with me. Just try it.
Yeah.
Just come out, shoot it once, and then you can walk away. Right? Anything that you can to antagonize them or to push them, to do, like, to open up, to give you an opportunity to do that. It's not a bad thing to be an asshole in order to get to understanding and to kind of be able to break through that barrier. Everybody's different. That's the problem. And everybody is,
I don't think that's being an asshole, though.
But that's the asshole approach, right? Like,
I don't know.
You're going to push them and push them and push them and call it, to get them to
I guess some people could see that as
and again,
being
that's more like a family type thing. Like, if I have family that won't go shoot,
fair enough.
I'm going to push them. I'm going to say, what are you scared?
Okay.
Are you scared? Dude, are you just too much of a wuss that you can't even be on a gun range?
I see what you're saying.
To try this?
Yeah.
Like, you're such a man that you can, like, I'll push.
Okay, I got you now.
To get them to go. Because the key is, you can't have a battle if you can't even get them on the battlefield.
That's true.
Right? So you can't have a conversation if
how
they
do
don't
you even
if
know.
They shut down.
Yeah, a lot of times they're just articulating talking points that they don't even understand. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. All right, second thing had to do with, again, one of your points, and that is I'm going to plant the seed in your brain to consider starting some sort of legislative branch within AR15.com.
Yeah, I've never heard that one.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to keep pushing that one.
It's definitely something that I've considered, and we've considered more, I think, recently than in the past. Again, the fact that we have a weakening or a weakened NRA that can't fight for us. But we have organizations out there that are doing stuff like that. So whether we do the legislative piece or we do something that's more traditional grassroots type stuff, like organizing.
Fair enough.
Getting people out to events, mobilizing people, I think that's a critical piece. I do want to do more with that. There's always 8 million things that we can do. Time,
talent, treasure. It's always, man.
It always eats at it, but it is something that I'd love to do, and I think that as both a responsibility, but also a legacy, like something to hand over to the firearms community. If and when I move on or pass on or whatever else, I would love to be able to have said I had a part in making us stronger as a group, as an organization, as a people, that we can, stand on our 2 feet and have this kind of
Yes.
Faith, not just in each other, like getting things done together.
Yeah.
Is the best way to put it, because we
hear you.
oftentimes just, whether it's life is kicking our butt, we make excuses. I mean,
you're right.
And I'm the first one to admit I make excuses. I can't always be at everything all the time. I can't do everything, and that's my excuse why I haven't done this sooner, is just time and energy. And it's great to have an excuse. We all have an excuses, but until we start putting excuses on the side and actually moving forward with the things that are important, no one's going to fight this battle for us.
Yeah.
Right?
Don't worry. I'm going to be that steel poker that's always poking you about this. Don't you worry.
I don't doubt that.
Don't you worry. Don't you worry.
Now that this has been discussed, I'm not going to sleep.
No. Well, let's start wrapping things up. I've got one final question.
Sure.
What is the biggest takeaway you want for our audience from our dialogue, from our conversation?
Ooh,
or in general.
You know, it's everybody has their own lives. Everybody's lives are different. It's not my place to tell anyone how to do anything or how to think or how to feel. But the most important thing that we can always do as a people is just be patient with one another and have each other's backs. In this community, we have a lot of ex-military. We have a lot of law enforcement. We have people who are used to counting on others. And for those of us on the civilian side that maybe have experienced that or have not, we need to understand that we have to come together. Right now, the left is really good at throwing those hand grenades in and trying to get us to fight amongst ourselves, right?
True.
And we can't let that divide us. So my biggest thing would be just people take their time, understand things, give each other the benefit of the doubt. We can have differing opinions and still have that core belief and faith, and that's the strength of what we are. The strength of what we are is that we believe in the Second Amendment, we believe in this country, we believe in democracy, right? And we want this to be the country that we grew up in. Mm-hmm. And it's not. It's recognizably not. I mean, it's sad when Sharon Osbourne says, this isn't the America that we removed it, that we remember. Yeah. I mean, everyone can see it, right? And it's an important thing for us to understand that we have to try to be able to get to that place, and we have to do it by, fighting for it. That doesn't mean the crazy stuff yet. We just need to do the daily things. We can't make excuses for one another, but we have to have each other's backs, because if they divide us, we're done.
I agree.
We're done.
100%. Great way to close out. Well, this is just another silly question. Where can folks learn more about AR15.com?
Yeah, go to the website. There's a lot. One thing I'll throw out there too is there are a lot of things that we are going to be changing and improving. One of the questions I think was on there was when's the next mass overhaul for ARFCOM, and we're probably going to be starting on that journey.
Nice.
So one of our goals for the site is to make it both easier to use, easier to find the things that you want to engage in, and to track those things. So there's going to be a lot of changes coming up. So definitely go to the website. It's AR15.com.
Surprise!
And get involved. And I just ask that people be patient with the new folks, be understanding, and remember, we need to embrace
welcoming
everyone. Right? We need to be welcoming. We need to be helpful. The person who's asking noob questions may just be a noob. Don't just assume the worst of people.
That's so true, man.
And let's focus on being the best side of us, because we're setting an example for everyone else that's coming there, and we don't want this to be a thing like the 2A folks don't embrace anyone new, so F them, right? We need the strength. We need to be together. That's
Absolutely.
The biggest thing. So
I love it.
Go to the site and get involved. Have fun. If you need to cause trouble. If you want to get a hold of me, I always try to make myself available to everybody. You can shoot me an email, and I am snail mail, punch me in the face, whatever. You see me anywhere. So.
All right, folks. Well, that's a wrap. Thank you, Juan, for coming on. This was a great conversation. Thanks for tuning in, folks. Thanks for our support from our sponsors. Thanks to the men and women who hold the line. Check out all our previous podcasts by visiting bulletproofworkshop.com. Learn more about me and training opportunities by visiting tridentconcepts.com. Until then, I'm Jeff Gonzalez, and you're listening to the Bulletproof Workshop podcast. Take care and stay safe.